Marcus wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the sleek black Mercedes that had just pulled into his small repair shop. He'd seen expensive cars before, but something about this one made his chest tighten with an inexplicable dread. When the driver's door opened and a woman in a tailored navy suit stepped out, the wrench slipped from his fingers and clattered against the concrete floor. She removed her sunglasses, and for a moment, time collapsed. Those eyes. He knew those eyes. But it couldn't be her. She was supposed to be gone forever. She was supposed to be safe from him, from his failures, from everything he'd destroyed 15 years ago. Yet here she stood, walking toward him with measured steps, her lips parting to speak a name he hadn't heard in over a decade. A name only one person in the entire world had ever called him. Marcus Chen had learned to measure his life in small victories. Getting his daughter Emma to school on time. Paying rent before the 5th of the month. Keeping his struggling auto repair shop open for another week. At 38 years old, he looked older than his years, with premature gray threading through his black hair and permanent oil stains under his fingernails that no amount of scrubbing could remove. But his eyes still held a spark of determination, the same fire that had gotten him through the darkest period of his life when everything had fallen apart. The shop was his sanctuary and his prison. Located on the outskirts of Seattle in a neighborhood that developers had forgotten, Chen's auto repair sat between a laundromat and a vacant lot where weeds grew through cracked asphalt. The building itself was a testament to persistence, with faded paint and a flickering neon sign that only illuminated the first 2 letters of his name. Inside, it smelled of motor oil, old coffee, and the particular kind of honest work that kept food on the table but would never make anyone rich. Emma, his 12-year-old daughter, sat in the small office doing her homework, her dark hair pulled into a ponytail, glasses sliding down her nose as she concentrated on algebra problems. She was the reason he got up every morning, the reason he'd clawed his way back from rock bottom. Her mother had left when Emma was 2, unable to handle the poverty and Marcus's crushing depression after he'd lost everything. Now it was just the 2 of them against the world, and Marcus was determined to give her every opportunity he'd squandered in his own youth. The Tuesday afternoon had been slow, just an oil change and a brake job that had barely covered the shop's electric bill. Marcus was considering closing early when he heard the distinctive purr of a high-performance engine pulling into his lot. He stepped out from under the hood of a battered Toyota and felt his breath catch in his throat. The Mercedes S-Class was immaculate, its black paint reflecting the cloudy Seattle sky like a mirror. It was the kind of car that belonged in a luxury dealership, not his shabby repair shop. But it was the woman who emerged from the vehicle that made Marcus's world tilt on its axis. She moved with the confidence of someone who commanded boardrooms, her navy suit perfectly tailored, her heels clicking against the concrete with authority. She was beautiful in a way that spoke of success and self-possession, her features sharp and elegant, her dark hair cut in a precise bob that probably cost more than Marcus made in a week. But it was her eyes that destroyed him. Almond-shaped, dark brown, intelligent, and achingly familiar. Eyes that haunted his dreams and his regrets. She removed her sunglasses and studied him with an expression he couldn't read. Professional. Neutral. But underneath, was that recognition? Was that pain? Are you Marcus Chen? Her voice was controlled, professional. Nothing like the warm laugh he remembered from another lifetime. Yes. His own voice came out rough, uncertain. Can I help you? She gestured to the Mercedes. My car has been making an unusual sound. The dealership is booked for 2 weeks and someone recommended your shop. She paused and something flickered in her eyes. They said you were the best mechanic in Seattle, even if your shop doesn't look like much. Marcus nodded slowly, trying to steady his racing heart. I can take a look. What kind of sound? As she described the issue, a grinding noise when she accelerated, likely a problem with the transmission or drive shaft, Marcus found himself studying her face, searching for confirmation of what his instincts were screaming. The shape of her jaw. The way she tilted her head slightly when she spoke. The small scar above her left eyebrow that she'd gotten when they were teenagers, climbing the fence behind the high school. Do I know you? He finally asked, unable to stop himself. She met his gaze directly, and for a moment, her professional mask slipped. Pain, old and deep, flashed across her face. "I don't think so," she said quietly. "I'm Catherine Zhou, CEO of Meridian Tech Solutions. And you're Marcus Chen, mechanic." The formality of her words felt like a slap, but Marcus nodded. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him, superimposing old memories onto a stranger's face. 15 years was a long time. People changed. He'd certainly changed. "I can diagnose it today," he said, retreating into the safety of his work. "Repairs might take a few days if I need to order parts." "That's fine." She reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a business card. "Call me with an estimate. I'll arrange for a rental car." As she called for a ride, Marcus got to work. He drove the Mercedes into his garage bay, and the moment he turned the key, he heard the problem. It was worse than she'd described. The transmission was failing, and if he didn't fix it soon, she'd be looking at complete engine damage. He spent the next hour running diagnostics, losing himself in the familiar rhythm of mechanical problem-solving. When he finally emerged from under the car, dirty and sweating, he found Catherine still there, standing in his office doorway, talking quietly with Emma. His daughter was showing her the math homework, and Catherine was explaining something about quadratic equations with the patience of a natural teacher. The sight of them together created a strange ache in Marcus's chest. "Your daughter is brilliant," Catherine said, noticing him. "She should consider advanced placement classes." "Can't afford private school," Marcus said, more harshly than he intended. "Public school will have to be enough." Catherine's expression softened. "Some public schools have excellent gifted programs. I could provide some information." "We're fine." Marcus cut her off, then immediately felt guilty. She was just being kind. "Sorry, it's been a long day. Your transmission is shot. I can replace it, but it's going to cost about $4,000 in parts and labor. Maybe more if there's additional damage." He expected her to balk at the price, to demand he call the dealership, to remind him of the gulf between their worlds. Instead, she simply nodded. "How long will it take?" 3 days, maybe 4. "Do it." She pulled out a platinum credit card. "I'll pay half now, half on completion. And Marcus?" She paused, meeting his eyes with an intensity that made his pulse race. "Thank you for being honest about the cost. Most mechanics would try to upsell someone driving a car like mine." As she left in her rental car, Marcus stood in his garage, turning her business card over in his oil-stained fingers. Catherine Zhou, CEO, Meridian Tech Solutions. Not the girl he'd known. Not Elena Rodriguez, the love of his life, the one person he'd failed when she needed him most. But those eyes. Those eyes were hers. "Dad?" Emma appeared beside him. "That lady was really nice. She said I should apply for this summer program at the university for kids who like science. It's free if you qualify based on income." Marcus pulled his daughter close, kissing the top of her head. "We'll look into it, sweetheart. Now go pack up your stuff. We need to pick up groceries on the way home." That night, after Emma was asleep in their small 2-bedroom apartment, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with a beer he wasn't drinking and a photograph he rarely looked at. The picture was 15 years old, creased and faded, showing 2 teenagers sitting on a beach at sunset. The boy was laughing, his arm around the girl, both of them so young and full of dreams. He was going to be an engineer. She was going to be a doctor. They were going to change the world together. Then his parents died in a car accident. Then the depression swallowed him whole. Then he dropped out of MIT 3 months into his freshman year. Then he pushed her away because he couldn't bear for her to see what he'd become. Then he lost everything, including himself. He'd heard through mutual friends that Elena had disappeared, changed her name, reinvented herself completely. He'd convinced himself it was for the best. She'd escaped him, escaped the poverty and desperation that had become his life. She'd gotten the future she deserved, even if it was without him. But if Catherine Zhou was Elena Rodriguez, then she hadn't escaped. She'd transformed, and she'd walked back into his life for a reason he couldn't yet understand. Marcus worked on the Mercedes for 3 days, treating it with more care than he'd given any job in years. He replaced the transmission, repaired damage to the drive shaft, and fine-tuned the engine until it purred like new. But his real motivation wasn't the money or even professional pride. Every bolt he tightened, every system he checked, brought him closer to seeing her again, and this time he needed answers. Catherine arrived on Friday afternoon exactly when he'd told her the car would be ready. She wore jeans and a simple white blouse, looking more relaxed than during her first visit, though no less beautiful. Marcus had cleaned himself up, wearing his Lee-stained work shirt and having actually combed his hair for once. "It's done," he said, leading her to the Mercedes. "Runs like new, maybe better than new, actually. I noticed a few other issues and fixed them. No extra charge." She raised an eyebrow. "That's not good business practice. Consider it an investment in customer satisfaction." He handed her the keys, their fingers brushing for a moment. The contact sent electricity up his arm, and from the way her breath caught, she felt it too. Catherine inspected the work, asking intelligent questions about what he'd done and why. She wasn't just being polite. She genuinely understood mechanical systems in a way that surprised him. When she started the engine, her smile was genuine and unguarded, transforming her entire face. "It's perfect," she said. "You really are the best." "Just doing my job." Marcus shifted his weight, gathering courage. "Catherine, can I ask you something?" Her smile faded slightly. "Of course." "Did you know who I was when you came here?" The silence stretched between them, heavy with 15 years of unspoken words. Finally, she nodded. "Yes, I knew." "Why?" The word came out hoarse. "Why come here? Why now?" Catherine turned off the engine and stepped out of the car, facing him directly. "Because I needed to see if you were okay. I needed to know that the boy I loved, the boy I've thought about every single day for 15 years, had found some kind of peace." Elena. Her real name escaped his lips like a prayer. "Not anymore." She shook her head. "That girl died the day you disappeared from my life, Marcus. I built Catherine Zhou from nothing. New name, new identity, new purpose. I put myself through college working 3 jobs. I earned my MBA while sleeping 4 hours a night. I climbed every ladder, broke every ceiling, and became successful enough that my past couldn't touch me." Her voice cracked. "But I never forgot you. I never stopped wondering what happened to the brilliant boy who was going to change the world." Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. "I fell apart. After my parents died, I couldn't function. The depression was like drowning every single day. I dropped out of MIT. I pushed you away because I was convinced I'd only drag you down with me. I thought I was protecting you." "You were wrong." Catherine stepped closer. "I would have stood by you. I would have gotten you help, fought for you, carried you through it. But you didn't give me the choice. You just vanished." "I know." Marcus's voice broke. "It's the biggest regret of my life. Not fighting harder, not letting you in, losing you." Catherine pulled a manila folder from her car and handed it to him. "Open it." Inside, Marcus found documents he didn't understand at first. Legal papers, financial statements, a deed to a property. He looked up at her, confused. "I've been successful, Marcus, very successful. Meridian Tech Solutions is worth over $200 million. I have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes." She took a deep breath. "That property deed is for a building downtown. 10,000 square feet. Perfect for a state-of-the-art auto repair shop with space for advanced diagnostics, multiple bays, even a training center where you could teach other mechanics." Marcus stared at her. "I don't understand." "I'm offering you a second chance. Not because you need my charity, but because you deserve to fulfill your potential. You were meant for greatness, Marcus. You still are." "That girl in your office? Emma, she adores you? She told me you're the smartest person she knows, that you can fix anything, that you work harder than anyone she's ever seen. You didn't let your past destroy you. You built a life from nothing, raised a daughter alone, and maintained your integrity through it all. Elena, Catherine, I can't accept this. Marcus thrust the folder back at her. It's too much. I don't deserve... Stop. Her voice was firm but gentle. This isn't about what you deserve. This is about what I need. I need to know that the boy I loved got his shot at happiness. I need to know that your talent isn't wasted in this forgotten corner of the city. I need to make peace with our past by investing in your future. She paused, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. And maybe if you let me, I need to be part of your life again. Not as we were. We're different people now, but as friends. As people who once meant everything to each other and maybe can mean something again. Marcus looked at the folder, at the woman before him, at the Mercedes that represented everything he'd once dreamed of becoming. Why did you really come here? It wasn't just about the car. Catherine smiled, sad and beautiful. I came to Seattle to close a business deal, but I'd been tracking you for years, Marcus. I knew where you were, what you were doing, how you were raising Emma alone. When my car started making that noise, I saw an opportunity. A test, maybe. I needed to see if the Marcus I remembered still existed under the years and the hardship. And he does. You're still the kind man who fixes problems. You're still the person who helps others even when it costs you. You're still the boy I fell in love with, just older and wiser. I'm broken, Marcus whispered. I see a therapist twice a month. I take medication for depression. I still have days when getting out of bed feels impossible. I'm not the person you remember. Good. Catherine's response surprised him. Because the person I remember was drowning and too proud to ask for help. This person, this Marcus, is honest about his struggles and fights through them anyway. This person is so much stronger than that boy ever was. Marcus felt something crumbling inside him. The wall he'd built around his heart. The conviction that he didn't deserve happiness. The belief that his failures defined him. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Say you'll let Emma apply for that summer program. Say you'll have dinner with me tomorrow night so we can talk like adults about what comes next. Catherine reached out and took his hand, her touch gentle but sure. Say you'll forgive yourself for being human and give us both a chance to rewrite our ending. From the office doorway, Emma's voice interrupted them. Tad, is everything okay? Marcus turned to see his daughter watching them with curiosity and something that looked like hope. He realized that Emma had never seen him with anyone, had never witnessed him connecting with someone outside their small, insulated world. Emma, come here. He beckoned to her. I want you to meet someone properly. This is Catherine Zhou, but a long time ago, before you were born, I knew her as Elena. She was my best friend. Emma approached shyly and Catherine knelt down to her level. Your dad tells me you're interested in science. What's your favorite subject? Physics, Emma said. I want to understand how things work. Dad explains it sometimes, but I want to learn more. Catherine glanced up at Marcus and he saw the understanding in her eyes. His daughter had inherited his curiosity, his analytical mind, his need to solve puzzles and fix what was broken. I think I can help with that, Catherine said. If your dad says it's okay, I know some people at the university who run summer programs for students like you. Would you be interested? Emma's face lit up. Really? Dad, can I? Marcus looked at Catherine, at his daughter, at the folder that represented possibilities he'd stopped dreaming about years ago. He thought about the photograph on his kitchen table, those two young people who'd had their future stolen by tragedy and bad choices. He thought about the man he'd become, scarred but surviving, broken but still standing. And he thought about forgiveness, not just forgiving himself, but accepting forgiveness from the person he'd hurt most. Yes, he said, the word coming easier than he expected. Yes to the summer program, yes to dinner tomorrow, yes to... He gestured at the folder. To exploring possibilities, but on one condition. Catherine stood facing him. Name it. This has to be equal. Not charity, not rescue. If I take the space, I pay you rent. I build the business myself. You can advise, you can help Emma, you can be in our lives. But I need to stand on my own feet. I need to prove that I'm capable of more than I've achieved. Can you accept that? For the first time since she'd walked into his shop, Catherine's professional composure cracked completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks and she laughed through them, a sound of pure relief. You stubborn, prideful, impossible man. Yes, I accept. We do this as equals, as partners, in whatever form that takes. Marcus didn't consciously decide to hug her. His body moved on instinct, pulling her close, and she came willingly, her arms wrapping around him as if 15 years hadn't passed, as if they were still those teenagers on the beach with their whole lives ahead of them. But this was better than that innocent young love. This was two people who'd been broken by life and had rebuilt themselves, finding each other again, not out of desperate need, but out of choice and possibility. "Ew, Dad," Emma said, but she was grinning. They broke apart, laughing, both wiping their eyes. Catherine pulled out her phone. "I'm texting you the contact information for the summer program director. Her name is Dr. Sarah Martinez, and she's expecting Emma's application." She looked at Marcus. "Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. There's a restaurant called the Harbor Light near Pike Place Market. Wear something without motor oil stains?" "I'll try my best," Marcus said, smiling in a way that felt unfamiliar, muscles in his face that had forgotten how to express joy. As Catherine drove away in her perfectly repaired Mercedes, Emma tugged on her father's sleeve. "Dad, are you happy?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, this miracle that had saved his life when he'd lost everything else. "Yeah, sweetheart, I think maybe I am." That night, Marcus sat at the kitchen table again with that old photograph. But this time, he also had Catherine's business card, the folder with its impossible promises, and a new picture Emma had taken on her phone of him and Catherine standing next to the Mercedes, both of them smiling like they'd just solved an impossible equation. He wasn't naive enough to think everything would be perfect from now on. He'd still have bad days. He'd still struggle with depression. Building a new business would be terrifyingly hard. Navigating a relationship with Catherine after 15 years of separation would require patience, honesty, and a vulnerability he'd spent years avoiding. But for the first time since his parents died, Marcus Chen felt something that had been absent from his life for too long. He felt hope. 2 months later, construction began on Chen Advanced Automotive. Catherine secured loans and investors, but Marcus insisted on owning 60% of the business. He hired 2 other mechanics, both single parents who needed the work. Emma was accepted into the summer program and discovered a passion for quantum mechanics that made her professor laugh with delight. And every Sunday, Marcus, Emma, and Catherine had dinner together, slowly building something new from the ashes of their past. They didn't call it dating. They didn't put labels on what they were becoming to each other. But when Catherine showed up at midnight with takeout because she knew Marcus had been working late on a difficult repair, or when Marcus sent her flowers on the anniversary of the day she'd walked into his shop, or when Emma insisted that Catherine come to her science fair presentation because you're basically family, they all understood that some bonds transcend time, distance, and even the mistakes that once tore them apart. On the day Chen Advanced Automotive officially opened, with its gleaming bays and state-of-the-art equipment, Marcus stood in the center of his shop with Emma on one side and Catherine on the other. The mayor was there, local news was filming, and dozens of people from the neighborhood had come to celebrate. But Marcus barely saw them. He was thinking about the journey from that dark place after his parents' death to this moment of triumph, and about the woman who'd never stopped believing he was worth saving, even when he'd given up on himself. "Thank you," he whispered to Catherine, "for seeing me, for remembering who I could be, for coming back." She took his hand, her grip strong and sure. "Thank you for letting me, for having the courage to accept help, for showing me that the boy I loved grew into a man I could admire even more." Emma tugged on both their hands. "Are you guys going to get all mushy again? Because the reporters want to interview Dad, and you're supposed to be professional." They laughed, And Marcus realized that this sound, his daughter's teasing, Catherine's bright laughter, his own genuine joy, was the sound of healing. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and honest and worth every difficult step that had led him here. As he walked toward the reporters to discuss his new business, Marcus glanced back at Catherine. She smiled at him, and in that smile he saw their shared past, their unexpected present, and a future full of possibility. He'd repaired her car, but she'd repaired something far more important. She'd reminded him that broken things could be made whole again, that second chances existed for those brave enough to reach for them, and that sometimes the people we loved and lost had the power to find their way back to us, transformed but still recognizably themselves, still capable of believing in us even when we'd stopped believing in ourselves. And that was a message worth sharing. That was hope worth holding on to. That was love worth fighting for, whether it took 15 years or 15 more. The story of Marcus Chen and Elena Rodriguez, now Catherine Zhou, was one of loss and redemption, of broken dreams rebuilt into something stronger, of a love that survived separation and transformation to emerge as something deeper and more resilient than either of them could have imagined. It was the story of every single parent working multiple jobs, every person fighting depression in silence, every talented individual trapped by circumstance. It was a reminder that our failures don't define us, that asking for help is strength, not weakness, and that the people we touch with kindness and skill and integrity might just remember us, might just come back when we need them most, might just offer us the second chance we were too afraid to dream about. Marcus had repaired Catherine's car, but together they'd repaired each other's hearts. And in doing so, they'd proven that sometimes the most broken things, given enough care and attention and love, could become more beautiful than they'd ever been before.